We are what we believe we are. C.S. Lewis. Bending, not breaking. A mini episode. Welcome back to Bending Not Breaking. This is Ben Pruitt, one of your hosts for the main portion of our podcast. Fortunately for all of us, Sunshine is not with us this episode. Just kidding. I appreciate him a great deal, and I also appreciate his commentary and wisdom. But you're stuck with me this time, and I am really grateful that I have this time to thank a few people. I really want to thank the thearkofe for hosting this podcast and supporting us, doing a lot of the editing and helping us through all the things that really make this something that's worth listening to. I also appreciate them for just the whole inclusion of letting us do this our own way, giving us the opportunity to have creative license, and I just appreciate it and would love to make a huge thanks for them. Someone else I want to thank is Max. He's not here with us today, but I appreciate him as a producer, and I appreciate his guidance and wisdom and just his overall friendship. Lastly, I want to make sure that I thank all of our listeners and subscribers. You all make this worth it. You all give us a chance to hear you through your voicemails and your emails. You give us a chance to interact and build community around Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is everything to us because we love the show so much. And I mean, if you like this content, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or any place you can leave a review. Those reviews make a big difference in the algorithms. It's just really awesome when we have those reviews. So if you write something really quirky, we might even read it out on the podcast one day, just so we can, lift up all the creative juices that y'all are putting into your reviews. You can also subscribe on Spotify. One of the best things you can do for us is tell your friends about us that like Avatar. And I mean, honestly, if you feel called to do so, don't be scared to support us on Patreon as well, because that helps us a great deal as well. It helps us continue. It helps us manage this beast that is a podcast. Just $1 a month can help, can go a long way, and we appreciate every bit. So thank you. I really appreciate your willingness to just hear me out on all of those cool things. Okay, so context for today's episode. I am in the process right now of applying to graduate school, and I am applying to get my master's degree in social work. And recently, literally as early as probably a week ago, I also decided that I wanted to apply for a dual degree program in divinity. So today's episode, mini episode I should say, is going to be about just faith and spirituality and how I have noticed a little bit of my struggle in the Avatar world as well. I do want to be clear and talk about, make sure that we're all under the same understanding of what I mean by spirituality. I like to use Brené Brown's definition, which is spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. Brené also defines faith, and I want to make sure that we kind of put that out there as well. Brené defines faith as a place of mystery, where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. while believing is crucial, having faith is essential and is the part that requires action. So with those two definitions, I think that it kind of gives me an interesting place to start talking, because there's so much data out right now about how people are leaving religion, millennials especially, and not coming back. In fact, I literally just read an article called "Millennials Are Leaving Religion and Not Coming Back," and it's by Daniel Cox and Amelia Thompson DeVoe, which you can find online. And there are so many articles like that. And Casper ter Kuile, who is one of the hosts of Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, but also does a lot of other work with his degrees. He is a part of an organization called How We Gather, which kind of did a lot of study on how are people gathering outside of religion, because people are leaving religion and they are realizing that they are becoming more socially isolated. So there's a lot of people who are more globally connected through the internet, but also so much more locally isolated than ever before. And there are a lot of what we would call secular organizations that are starting to fill the niche that church and synagogue and mosque has historically filled. So theoretically, there are 6 kind of themes, according to this study, that people are looking for. And those themes are community, personal transformation, social transformation, purpose finding, creativity, and accountability. And there are different organizations that have been highlighted that do a really good job at doing that. And one of them is like CrossFit, for instance, Soul Cycle. There's a lot of really cool projects and things that are working to help people do that. A lot of that's happening through podcasts nowadays. There's so much community around podcasts and Facebook groups around those things, and people are finding there's a way to take that local. So, for instance, again, I mentioned Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. There are now local groups and local chapters of people who are interested in talking about Harry Potter and learning more, but they're doing it not just through the podcast, they're doing it with a group of people in their hometowns as well. And I find that to be just really interesting, all-encompassing, because now that I'm applying to divinity school, I'm not applying because I want to bring religion back into people's lives, but I want to learn more about faith and spirituality and love so that I can help bring those things into more secular spaces. And one of the things that I feel does that is Avatar. Avatar is a fairly secular show. They don't really mention religion at all. The only time somebody says grace before a meal is Tenzin in The Legend of Korra, and that happens once. And it's just really interesting to me to be so attached to a show that feels so values-based and morally charged, where there's no religious content either. Now, I say that, but there is a lot of what I would call spiritual content. In fact, there's a spirit world. There's a connection that people feel to the spirits. And I find that to be comforting, because this is a world in which we don't see, at least, prayer at all. And we don't see people attending religion. We see people, we don't, not worship, but we do see reverence, and we see gratitude, and we see interest in this idea that there is something greater than ourselves, and we're all connected by that power. And that's something that's really cool for me, because I feel that as well. For me, that spirituality is grounded in love. Love is greater than me, for sure. And I believe that. And that's what kind of grounds me in my spirituality, if you will. And that connection. For instance, I feel almost a meditative state when I'm playing the piano, and that makes me feel closer to myself. It makes me feel closer to who I want to be, and that to me is a spiritual practice. And so I'm curious because there are several characters who do a really good job with that, and I think Aang is one of them. He is very in touch with himself in a way that he knows when and how he wants things to go in terms of his moral compass. And I really long for that. And I think that requires a unique dive into your own mental awareness. And I think that the fact that he is a meditator and takes time to meditate is a big part of that as well. And so a part of me is kind of just being called by Aang and by the Avatar universe to do two things. One is spend time meditating and really paying attention to myself and my breath and the thoughts that are in my head. And then also, I'm also being called to be grateful. And I see in Avatar all of the appreciation Aang has for the world, and I see that manifested in his actions. And I'm grateful to have a teacher like Aang in my life, and I really just want us to think about what it would be like to live a little bit like Aang. How can you kind of bring Aang's practical sense of living into your own life? And so that's kind of been today's episode. That's my meandering thought process on faith, spirituality, and religion, and kind of how it ties back to Avatar and what I have been, quote, meditating on for the past week when I realized I needed to do a mini episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community where we can belong and have connection. And I hope that we can continue to grow our relationship together. So thanks again, and bye-bye.